There we go.
Mhm.
Morning, Samara.
Good morning, Robin.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well and excited to have this conversation.
Me too.
Oh, good. First off, I want to say thank you, and I genuinely mean it. Thank you for making time out of your day to talk about something that when we're in the coaching process, when we're in that relationship, we don't often stand outside of it and look in and say, ask some of the things and have the conversation that we're going to be having today because we're in it. We're in it.
Yeah.
But today is about sort of stepping outside of it. So I'm also curious to check in with you because it's been a little while, and have that outside in conversation. So thank you.
You're welcome.
What I'm first curious to ask you is, why did you decide to work with me?
I was feeling a bit stuck. I was at a time of my life where my youngest was moving into school and I had my massage work that I was doing. And I was starting to look at, okay, well, that work has been really good and it's what I still love to do, but I'm hitting a bit of a shelf in terms of where it can go and I feel stuck. I was feeling stuck around our house and what we were going to do with the house, and just sort of coming out of the fog of new baby life. So for me, it was, oh God, I don't even know I haven't thought about myself in years. So how do I start to explore what I want and how to get it? And then I saw, and it was through social media, that you kept popping up. And I think I met you at something at Macedon Chiropractic as well. Yeah. And yeah. Yeah. And then seeing women that I respected and who I thought were on a great path, commenting and interacting with you in a way that looked as though they'd done some work with you. So it was through, seeing women that I admire engage with you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So had you ever worked with a coach before?
No, I've had counselling. So I value, talking things out with a counsellor, and I've done that throughout my life, but never a coach. And to be honest, I was a bit cringy about coaches. I didn't really, there was something that felt a bit unrealistic about coaches, but you didn't have that vibe for me.
Unrealistic in what way? Because I think you're touching on something quite important.
A little bit just reach for the stars. You can have anything if you just believe in it, and to me that there's lots of anecdotes in that. You can get lots of lovely memes and catchphrases, and they say something and then they just twist the sentence around and say it in exactly the same way and say, isn't this profound? And my bullshit radar was high for that. And I think I might have said that to you in our first session, that I think you asked me honestly about what I wanted to get out of it, and I really just needed some solid skills and some solid tools to move forward. So just believing in yourself is such a tiny part of the work that we did together anyway. So yeah.
And was there anything that you remember that was the final, got you over the line of moving from that? Is it okay to call it skepticism? About coaching, or?
Yep. I can't remember. And again, I think it was seeing that. I actually think it might have been the fact that you were working with men as well. There was something grounding in that for me, that I thought, okay, this is, you're across the board here and you're working working with professional men, or you're hitting that target as well. And I know this is really gender biased, but I had a sense that men wouldn't waste time, professional men, based on my stereotype of professional men, wouldn't waste time with fluffy bullshit. So it could have been that, and a combination of some really bright, clever women who I know have worked with you. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
What was it like at the beginning? It was a little while ago, I know, but can you remember what it was like at the beginning of us working together?
I felt instantly comfortable. I mean, it is a little bit terrifying. I find all of this stuff, I mean, counseling is easy because you can just launch into talking about yourself without any kind of accountability, or somebody might, the counselor might want to pick up on a thread to explore, things about your deeper self. But this was more, it was the challenging work that I was really looking for, and I think, again, in the first session, I might have said to you, like, I want to be challenged, and I don't want any bullshit. Like, I just want you to say, hang on a minute, what's that about? Or challenge my perspective on something, which you really did straight away. Has that answered your question, or have I gone on a tangent?
No, that's good. What I'm hearing is you took control of how you wanted the process and the relationship to be.
You
kind of had a sense of what you didn't want, and also a pretty good idea of what you did want.
Yeah, and you were open to that. So and embraced that too. I didn't sort of butt up against an ego that went, oh, well, this is what we do, and you just trust what I'm doing here. It was, oh, that's cool. I really, let's work with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciated that about you. And we're all different. We all have different needs. It's going to look different for each person. But I do remember there was clarity and a concrete sense of what you were wanting from this investment: time investment, energy investment, financial investment.
Yeah.
What was it like working together? What do you remember of that process over time?
I really loved, for me, one of my sticking points is this kind of needing to back myself all the time. So struggling to make decisions or have confrontational conversations because I'm not sure I can back myself. And so you kind of helped me to change the way my brain works, where you would say things like, are you sure about that? Or how do you know about that? So I might say a blanket, oh, well, they're just going to say blah, 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 or they think this. And you would always say, how do you know? Have you asked? Have you checked? So that aligned with my need to back myself all the time. That was a way I could back myself instead of just not moving on something because I wasn't sure whether it was true or not. You kind of helped me learn how to check and ask. And there's nothing confrontational about double checking or, working on your communication to say, I just want to check this with you, or how does this sound to you? Or I'm wondering about this. Is that true? Those sorts of things have well and truly become part of my life and how I communicate with people.
Well, what difference has that made? I'm curious just to know, having that new way of communicating and processing, what difference has that made in your life?
It makes things clearer. Like, it just unclogs some of the muck, where when you're talking with people and you start to get this, they might say blanket statements to you, and I might feel a bit confronted by that, or I might feel like there's this sort of blanket thing being put over something, and I can start to unpick it a little bit by saying, oh, can you tell me why you think that might be true? Or I'm not really sure about that. I might need to work out if that's the case. I'm not giving clear examples, but,
Yeah.
you know, if I find when, you know, when information can be delivered to me in this, it is an absolute truth kind of thing, I think I used to backpedal away from that going, oh, it must be true. Whereas a little disconnect for me within myself would be, oh, that doesn't feel true, or I'm not sure about that, or I think I need more information about that. And instead of just quietly sitting there going, oh, okay, all right, this is what we're doing and this is how we're doing it because this is the only way. Now I can go, are we sure that that's, we've looked at all aspects of this particular issue or this particular statement, or can we be sure, or I might need to go away and think about whether that's true for me, or does that make sense?
It does, because what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm off track, is there's the listening of yourself rather than switching off to that and just going on with, as many of us women do. So the listening of yourself and your own wisdom, what's happening within you, but there's also the confidence to act on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's the curiosity of, that's not sitting right with me. This thing that is happening around me is not sitting right with me. And the confidence to stop and listen and give yourself time and space to go, hang on a minute, that doesn't feel right. And if you know, like I'm often hijacked by my physical responses to difficult conversations. So, and that's still a work in progress for me, but to be able to honor the fact that there's something happening that doesn't feel right, and inquire a little bit more about what that could be, double check that you've got it right with the person that's delivering something to you. And it's fine to be a little bit vulnerable and say, I'm not really sure I understand. So if I'm right, this is what you're saying. And sometimes even saying it back to the person, you know, I've found has helped them see, you know, if there's any problems in what they've said to me. Yeah.
Yep. So it's a very different way of communicating and relating to people.
Yeah. And, you know, when I think about I thought about our conversation afterwards and this rebel, you know, this midlife rebel. And I was thinking about how when I was a teenager, the hormonal inability to put a lid on the inconsistencies of what was happening, you know, you just can't be this good girl anymore that sits with this inner fury or inner discontent with what is going on, and it comes across as rebellious when you blurt out or you slam a door or you say this is bullshit, you know. And I think a lot of women, when that hormonal shift happens again later in life, there's this, I just can't sit with this shit anymore. You know, yeah, I reckon that's what it is.
I reckon you're bang on.
Mm.
In fact, I can feel myself getting a little emotional thinking about the analogy you're drawing, because I'm going back to the rebellious teenager me and that kind of behavior. And you've explained it beautiful, the incongruity between what I'm feeling and what I'm seeing out in the world, or the injustice or whatever it is that's it just, and that's right, that explodes out.
Yeah.
And look at us now. It's you're right. We get to this certain age, we get to midlife, and I wrote the other. What I wrote the other day, something like, "What the fuck is this?" Or what, you know, just you get to that point of, is this it? Or it's got to be different. Or, you know, there's that. But I love how you've drawn that line between the two.
Yeah, and I think we go through life just, you know, we do, whether it's society or just, you know, years of conditioning or our own blueprint or whatever, best intentions, worst intentions, whatever. And men and women, I don't believe that it's true just for women. But you do get to a point, and I think this, and the midlife part of your, you know, your branding is that, you know, we call it a midlife crisis or whatever, this kind of like, shit, if this is, and maybe this, you know, if this is the last bit of my life, well, fuck that. I'm not that bit beforehand was all okay. And then this bit after teenagers and becoming a parent and hitting the work, you know, kind of axe to the grindstone by the house kind of stuff, like all of those, you can still have all of those things, but, you know, it has to align with how you feel. You know, if there's a misalignment there, it's gross. Yeah.
If there's a misalignment there, it's gross.
You.
You. Can we put that on a t-shirt? I love that. Yeah, and spot on. That really speaks to me deeply. Which you're absolutely right. That's where the midlife rebel was born from, and that's the essence of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And whatever that looks like for you, I think, you know, as it did for us as teenagers, it looked a particular way. You know, for me, it was about wearing black jeans because I was told I wasn't allowed to wear black, and a whole host of other sort of things. Likewise, it looks different for us, for each of us at this age, but there's a thread that joins it. It's about saying, the conditioning, the stories, who I've been told to be. Is that who I want to be? Who am I?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think you can only move forward in the things that you want once you can see where your blocks are and whether they're self-imposed or whether they're being imposed by another person or structure, you know.
Yeah.
That was true for me.
Yeah. Yep. So what's life like now, Samara? You know, we worked together for, you know, a decent amount of time, and you kind of came in and out of the relationship as you needed. What's life like now compared to before we started working together?
Yeah. So this year I've done a leadership course, which was kind of offered and suggested to me through the work that I've been doing with the neighbourhood house that we're starting in Macedon. So I think when we started working together, the project itself about the community house was, I knew this massive thing that it would be, and I was a bit hesitant to take it on just because of the sheer size and time commitment. And, you know, I think through our work, I was able to have a little conversation with myself that just kind of went, well, what's the worst that can happen? It won't work. You know, it'll fall down and the community won't embrace it and the funding won't be happening, and so what? And so I think life for me now is, well, let's have a crack and see. Let's do this course that was in order. So I'm jumping around in timelines, but I decided to have a crack at the community house because I thought, what's the worst thing that could happen? And it is all of those things that I thought, but it's manageable in bite-sized chunks. I've always sort of said I can just take little bites of this at a time. And we're about to open the doors officially at the start of November, mid-November. So that's really exciting. And through that was offered to do this leadership program through Bendigo Bank. And that's been a real personal exploration and self-development. So it's ongoing. I still have all of those triggers and have all of those things that, you know, I work on. I see that I will always work on this stuff and I'll always get tripped up. And the course itself and the work that we did, and, you know, some of, you know, the introductions to some of, you know, speakers like Brené Brown and people that talk about, you know, being where you're at and acknowledging where you're at and your vulnerability, and, you know, and leading with kindness and that kind of coming back to your values. So as far as, you know, I think what it's done for me is just really check in with my values all the time, and how I'm feeling about things. And to be honest, I don't as far as some great trajectory goes in some career or some big, beautiful house, you know, all of those things may or may not eventuate, but I have a belief that they could if all the decisions that I make feel right. So if something stops feeling right, it might be time to move. It might be time to change.
Ooh, there's that trusting and listening
Mm.
to yourself and trusting yourself.
Mm. And it sounds really easy and wordy and sort of just believe in yourself, like I was saying, but that stuff takes a lot of work. Like I think that's what I'm trying to say is that when you feel like you're getting to the other side of having that skill now of being able to listen and respond and move in that way, it sounds easy and it sounds trite, but it's really hard work and it hurts, and it's not, you have to be challenged by hard stuff in order to feel like you can do that too. Yeah.
And that's something that I noticed with working with you, is you were prepared to be really, to sit in those hard conversations or those hard feelings, to really to bring them to the table, to bring them to our conversation, so that you could not look at them on the surface level, but go a bit deeper.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think without a safe space, you just can't do that work. And you know, I think you said it, you're prepared to help somebody seek that in another direction. If that's not how, you know, if that's not the best of your time and best use of your time and skills and their time and energy with you, then, you know, going deeper for some people might be necessary as well. And, you know, as I say, that's something that I kind of do as an ongoing, every now and then check in with somebody. So, you know, you can't get away from it because it's just going to keep bubbling up. I think that was back to your original question. That was one of the things that I knew I had blocks, because I want to move on certain things, but the same shit keeps coming back all the time. And, you know, it doesn't matter how much counseling you've done. Sometimes you just feel like, oh, fuck, are we here again? And that's where I think something other than counseling works. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. You can rehash it and you can go there and you can see that it's coming up, but you don't have another door to go through to go, all right, it's here, this is what it is. How do I keep going?
Yeah. And in a nutshell, that's a really great distinction between coaching and counseling.
Yeah.
And it's always a conversation I'm happy to have with people around, okay, like you, I've done a lot of counseling. How is this different? Or I've had a lot of counseling, but I'm still wanting this. I'm still wanting to have this conversation about my life. It doesn't really fit the counseling criteria, but I don't want to stop here. I want to keep going. There's more to me and there's more to explore.
How do I take all this stuff that I've done and use it?
Spot on.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. So my final question, thank you for having this conversation again. My final question is, if you were speaking to other people, not me, but if you're speaking to other people about what coaching was like, particularly with me, what kind of words do you use?
I have said that you help to open doors for people. So, you know, sometimes you just need to know that there's a way out of this kind of place, and that you help people explore their curiosity around that. That word always stood out for me with our work together, and you use it a lot. You would say, I'm curious about that, or I wonder if we can get curious about that. And when you're asking questions, so we're, you know, when I'm telling other people about what you're like, I feels safe because all we're doing is asking questions. You know, if you're innocently asking questions as a little kid, but why? Is that sure? What? Tell me why. There's no confrontation in that. There's just curiosity. And curiosity, you know, that was one of the key things I took away from our work, is that, you know, you're not demanding anything. You're not kind of, you know, banging people on the head with anything. You're just asking a question. And so I think that that is a really safe space that was a safe space for me. So when I tell people about, you know, this stuff, it doesn't have, I mean, I was talking earlier about this, you know, doing the work and all that sort of stuff, but that is done really gently with, what's through this door? You know, what happens if we go here? You know, have we thought about that? You know, what if they're over there in that lane, and what if we're over here in this lane? And, you know, what if we just stay there? You know, what if they just are over there? And, you know, I like to tell people about getting curious with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And that, thank you. That sums it up beautifully, because, I resonate, and I see our interactions in what you're saying. And in a lot of the work that I do, compassionate curiosity is an amazing gift that we can bring to so many situations. It's not the only tool, but it's an easy one to start with.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's, you know, the other thing that I really like about working with you is the accountability. So you kind of keep yourself accountable, and you know what you're responsible for and accountable for, and the things that you have to do, and then you know what other people are responsible for. So you know when you can separate those things between yourself and others. Yeah.
Wow, that's huge, because that can really change stress levels, health, you know, how much overwhelm you've got up here.
Yep.
That's a big one.
Yep. Yep. Getting clear on your boundaries, getting clear on knowing where you begin and end, and where somebody else begins and ends. And that's a huge gift. Yeah. So
I love talking to you.
oh, I love talking to you. And it's I haven't been able to articulate all these things too. So I'm really glad that you know, I'm able to reflect on that stuff, because, you know, yeah, I did the work, but it really takes skill, I think, to that you have to get somebody into that way of thinking. And it has changed my way of thinking. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Samara. What a perfect place to end on. I appreciate you, and it's as always, it is an absolute privilege to have walked with you on that part of the journey, but also to have the opportunity, even when we're not working together, to be able to check in and have these kind of conversations, and to still feel like, for me, the connection is real. I think you and I were talking the other day about the transactional nature. Yeah, there's this, you know, it's a professional relationship, but one of the things I really love about coaching is that we're also, the connection is real, you know, the connection that we make, and that's the basis of that relationship, that from which the work can be done, but then the admiration and the respect and the love can also come as well. So,
and the celebration, I think to have a champion in your corner, like, I think that's what I feel with you and other people that I know that have worked with you, that I'm friends with. You know, we enter a different sphere space of celebrating what you're doing in a non-wanky way, you know, in a fuck, that's great, you know, I'm really happy for you, and really genuinely being happy for somebody, you know, in a totally authentic way.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Samara.
Thank you, Robin. You might need to do some editing.